Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast.
Well, welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast. Great to have you with me, where we look at our current generation through the lens of faith and history, character, and leadership. Man, I am recording in our studios in Nashville, Tennessee, and it is hot, baby. Whew, it's hot. I was just in Iraq 2 weeks ago. It's about 120 there, but in Nashville, it's not near that hot. But the humidity is like 92 and the temperature's like 100. It's unbelievable. Hope you're staying cool. I want to dive right in on this podcast because I'm going to do something I have never done before in all the years that I've been recording this podcast. I want to propose a constitutional amendment. Now, I know I've got a lot of congressmen and senators listening to this podcast and a lot of people who work on their staffs and think about legislation, but I may be overshooting. Maybe we need just a law rather than a constitutional amendment. But I'll tell you, I feel so strongly about what I'm about to discuss that I think a constitutional amendment is warranted. I'll get into the details in just a minute. But what I want to talk about and what I want to propose a solution to is the practice of flying flags other than the American flag over US embassies. I got to tell you that with the Biden and Obama administrations, they just started to treat the embassies like they were their own campaign headquarters, like they could put their own personal views of politics right on an American embassy for all to see. And I got to tell you, it's done damage. It's damaged our diplomatic initiatives in a bunch of countries. It's been offensive, and it's made America look a way that the majority of Americans do not share. Let me give you some examples. I have been in the Muslim world where the rainbow flag is flown over a U.S. embassy in the Muslim world. You might need to know that Muslims are opposed to homosexuality. This is offensive. This causes us to be even more the great Satan in some people's eyes. This as seen as a finger right poked in the eye of the host nation. Think about it. Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Iraq, Iran. We've actually flown the rainbow flag now, the flag of LGBTQ plus nation, on over American embassies and in countries that are opposed to homosexuality, as though we're saying, screw you, we're going to do this anyway, even though we know it's highly offensive to you. Well, what does that do when we turn around and look for an oil treaty, or turn around and ask for their help with Ukraine, or turn around and ask for them to show some human rights kindness in a certain part of the world? We've actually flown the LGBTQ plus rainbow flag at the Vatican. At the Vatican. Now, come on. That's just intended to pick a fight with the Catholics of the world. Why would we do that? Of course, I know most Catholics wouldn't be offended, but some Catholics wouldn't be offended by that, but a huge amount would. More importantly, we're sticking our finger right into the eye of the Pope, the Curia, the entire Vatican apparatus. Why? Aside from that, we've also flown the Black Lives Matter over U.S. embassies. Now, these are embassies that represent official United States, the United States government, and thus its people in the world. And we're flying that kind of flag over these embassies. And by the way, I think there's worse to come. And by the way, some other similar bad things have happened. So I want to make it clear that this practice, largely begun by the Obamas and largely begun by the Bidens, of flying flags that represent their pet causes over U.S. embassies, I think is atrocious. It damages us internationally. It misrepresents our country. It harms us in global initiatives. It weakens us in terms of our global leadership role. And I have to say, it doesn't represent the majority of Americans according to all polls. Now, let me tell you our current status in this matter. The White House endorsed a $1.2 trillion spending deal in March, and included in that, at the insistence of Republican leadership, was that funds only be used to fly the American flag and other official flags at U.S. embassies. Now, that $1.2 trillion spending deal, again, it had some fat on it. It had some chicken. It had some additional riders on the bill, and one of those had to do with whether you could fly anything other than the American flag at a U.S. embassy. Well, I'm telling you that thing is coming up for renewal at the end of the year. The Biden administration urged swift passage of the bill, which will fund the remainder of the government, including the Department of Defense, through the end of this fiscal year. So we're going to have to reconsider this here in about 6 months. All right. Now, none of the funds of that bill made available by the bill can be spent to fly or display flags other than the American flag or other eligible flags. We should probably talk quickly about, under this bill and under normal practice, what other eligible flags are. Other eligible flags include the POW MIA flags, flags of Indian tribal governments. I don't frankly agree with that, and I am Native American. Sovereign flags of other countries, I don't mind doing that to honor them. If a country has a horrible, like when France had some horrible terrorism, we flew their flag over our embassies in a show of support. I'm okay with that kind of thing. State flags, District of Columbia flag, that kind of thing. Maybe the flag of the Foreign Service, that's fine. Hostage and wrongful detainee flags, this is all part of the normal work of an embassy. But what's happened here of late, of course, is that largely Obama and the Biden administration has used our embassies as a canvas for displaying their own, I would even say personal, but certainly their administration's personal hobby horses, their personal agenda, in the same way that the Obama family lit up the White House in the colors of the rainbow flag after a certain Supreme Court ruling. I'm opposed to this. I'm opposed to this. I'm even opposed, for example, I'm an outspoken advocate for the Kurds, and you know that. We've talked about this before. But I don't believe if I was president of the United States, I wouldn't be insisting that the Kurdish flag be flown over a U.S. embassy. Now, maybe if the Kurds endured some horrible atrocity and we wanted to show support like we did for France a few years ago, I might be able to be talked into it. But I believe, with very few exceptions, and so I agree with some of the ones that are in this spending bill, with very few exceptions, only the U.S. flag should be flown. We've had some presidents push their personal agendas through our embassies, damaging our diplomatic initiatives, damaging the image of our country in the world, which, by the way, takes a hit almost every time Joe Biden or Kamala Harris open their mouths. I have to tell you, I've just come back from Iraq. I'll be in South Africa later this year. I've traveled internationally a lot this year, and I'm talking to officials, and I'm saying, what's the perception of America in your country? And they cite Joe Biden's weakness, and they cite Kamala Harris, and they cite our debt, and they cite these diplomatic oddities of flying flags that are offensive in their countries at our embassies. And all of that feeds an image of America's not to be followed, not to be respected, and doesn't have much of a future. So this is not just a religious issue. For example, I don't believe, and this bill does say, that Confederate flags should not be flown at American embassies. Now, how would you feel if some guy from Alabama, who was really, an Alabama partisan, Southern partisan coming out of the Civil War, flew the Confederate flag over a U.S. embassy? I assume most of you would be offended. Huge portion of my audience is black. I assume you'd be offended. And I say rightly so. But why in the world would we allow a president to force the rainbow flag or the Black Lives Matter flag? By the way, let me pause very quickly and say I'm completely in favor of Black Lives Matter as a sentiment, and I've lived my whole life that way, as many of you know, but I am not in favor of the Black Lives Matter organization. They've just taken a phrase that I believe in, they've made it the name of their organization, and that organization is a mess and is frankly damaging the American black cause all the time. So that's just an aside, but I want to be clear. So anyway, House Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican from Louisiana, has made sure that this American flag only with few exceptions provision is in this spending bill, but it's going to be suspended by the end of the year. So here's my question. Why should we be flying any flag with very few exceptions and only on rare occasions? Why should we be flying any flag other than the American flag at a U.S. embassy? And certainly, why do we use our embassy flagpoles and walls, their perimeter fences and what have you, our gates? Why use that to offend our host country? Many of you know that we've actually offended countries so much by sending gay ambassadors to the Muslim world, by our pushing of gay rights, our pushing of abortion in parts of the world where they oppose it, that we've actually encouraged riots. It may have contributed to the deaths of some ambassadors. I could go on and on and on. That's not the place for partisan domestic politics. That's not the place for Mr. Obama or Mr. Biden or any other president. And by the way, the same could be true of Republican presidents who want to fly certain flags along their agenda. No, the American flag only. It's an American outpost. It's an outpost of the U.S. It's like ollie income free for a lot of people. If you can battle your way through a riot, through a war, through a hassle, and get to the American embassy, especially if you have an American passport, baby, you are home. They will chopper you out. They will take care of you. You are home. You are on American soil. So why should the power and the strength and the authority of that facility in a foreign country be diminished and made a target because some president wants to fly a flag other than the American flag? Left, right, or center, I'm opposed. Now, again, I'm fine with honoring our POWs. I'm fine with, showing support maybe for a day or two for a country that's just been terrorized in some way or had something terrible happen. That's fine. But think just for a moment about what could happen in the coming years if it's open season on our embassies and any flag that reflects a personal interest, a personal cause celeb, is allowed to be flown at a U.S. embassy. This makes them pawns. This diminishes their authority, diminishes their ambassadorial presence. It shouldn't be allowed. So you congressmen and senators, appreciate you so much being an audience, part of the audience for this podcast. Others of you, I think we need a constitutional amendment. I know that's difficult. I know it has to get state approval. I know it's a longer process. But I think that any other law can be undone exactly like this spending bill that we've just had approved. And by the way, just disallowing funding for showing flags does not actually remove the legal authority to show those flags because, frankly, it doesn't cost much money, and it could be done out an ambassador's personal window or something like that, and he could cause a riot. Something like it has happened before. Let's be America. Let's keep our domestic political fights and agendas within the 50 states and our territories. Let's not pick a fight with foreign governments over these things that a majority of Americans do not share. And certainly, let's keep our presence strong and vibrant in the world.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times bestselling author, a popular global speaker, and senior fellow for public leadership at Palm Beach Atlantic University. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and Lincoln's Battle with God. Learn more at stephenmansfield.tv.